we're talking Gita, we're talking like that's its prime message, as we all heard in our fourth session about soul identity, is to shift our attention from what we're identified with. So, but today that first verse is all about this ability that each of us have. Because we've talked about intuition, we've talked about soul identity. Now we're going to talk about this thing called Sanjaya, which is in the first verse. This literally means completely victorious, but it actually means that intuitive ability for self-analysis that doesn't judge. So the ability to look at your thoughts, to look at your feelings, to look at what just happened, but from that intuitive place, let's call it love, from true love, universal love. That you're looking at your life, your thoughts, your feelings, what just happened, this big gap that I still have all these habits that are forcing me, compelling me to go away. I don't want to go, but I still go that way. But now I know the truth, but it's just a thought I just have about truth. I can't, it seems like this is huge gap, but it still looks upon that, wherever you are at, but it doesn't judge you. It just simply gives you that little distance of awareness. So you can look at this battle of duality, which, believe it or not, we are in big time on this earth plane, a battle of duality, objectively and intuitively, so that you can see where you stand. This is basically the first verse of the Gita. How are we doing on this battlefield of life, Kurukshetra, on this bodily plane, mentally plane, emotional plane, spiritual plane, this battlefield called Kshetra or Kurukshetra? How am I doing? Who's winning? Is my day mostly these outward-going influences that are distracting me and confusing me, or am I having some victories, also with some soul moments, and how is the balance? So this is basically what this first verse is all about, and it's really important that we can see this from a very nurturing, supportive place, because introspection is another word for this. People don't like it because if they're not trained like we're being trained in this first verse to introspect correctly, a lot of people will, and there's nothing wrong with it, will introspect and really focus on the negative the whole time. It's okay to write it out and get it off your chest, so to speak, but really not to identify with it again. We're enough identified with it. Remember, this is an intuitive ability of self-analysis. This is the Sanjaya that you hear about in the first verse, where the blind king, your manas mind, the limited mind, is asking that ability within us, the intuitive ability. Hey, I know there's a battle raging, and I'm wondering about all those good guys, all those soul qualities. So Sanjaya, can you tell me how it's all faring? That's basically what the first verse is. And then let me read to you, because I wrote down Yogananda's, right after Krishna's lines, then Yogananda says this. This is in your quotes on the very first page, 1, 2, 3, fourth one. The blind king Dhritarashtra, the blind mind, inquired through the honest Sanjaya, impartial introspection. When my offspring, the Kurus, parents, the wicked, impulsive mental and sense tendencies. You know, as you read the Gita, you will see the words that Yogananda uses when we mention that lower nature of us. See, there's nothing wrong with it. Remember, this is the duality built into the school. God created it. Divine Mother runs it. So we're not making it wrong. We're just saying that a duality is good and bad. Health and disease, right? And we're stuck, the mortal soul stuck in the middle of it, trying to figure out, well, what's going on? You know? I'm not so happy identifying with the good or the bad. Because even when I identify with the good, I'm worried that the good's going to be taken away. I'm sabotaging even the good by thinking this isn't going to last. Right? Because it's the duality is always going to have you up and down. On top of the world one day, the world's on top of you the next day. right? So there's no certainty at all in this duality. But I love Yogananda's words, the wicked, impulsive, mental, and sense tendencies. And then the sons of virtuous Pandu, the pure discriminative tendencies, gathered together on the Dharma Kshetra, the holy plane of Kurukshetra, the bodily field of activity, eager to do battle for supremacy. What was the outcome? Because remember, there was a quote you had last week where it said, as soon as you beat the war drum of meditation, as soon as you say, okay, meditation, I'm going to give it a go in my life, both sides say, I want to win. Don't they? Right. You don't really know how restless you are and how many habits you are until you sit down to meditate. You really don't know what kind of person you are until you start to sit down and meditate. Because then it all comes to the surface. So to be impartial with what you see for like a long time, years, you guys, years, you gotta be so impartial, because otherwise, my early diaries, I wouldn't want to read them to you. I couldn't help it, but they were pages and pages, and it was so dark, you know, as a monk. I would write all this dark stuff. And then every now, because that's what I was going through. It was so dark, I didn't find the ability to later on of being more impartial about what I was going through. I was just too thick in it. And every now and then I would have a few pages where, well, God gave me a little respite from that darkness, and I got a little light, a little carrot in meditation, maybe a couple days, maybe a week, maybe I'd be on a roll, and then boom, you know, pages and pages of the dark stuff again. Well, eventually I realized that that's okay too. That's all part of it. See, the ego, intellectual, manas mind is going to want you to analyze it and put your own 2 cents on how you think the spiritual path should be unfolding for you. We all do it. We all do it not just with the spiritual path, but we do it probably with every conversation that we're in. When someone's even talking and we're not even listening to them, but we're putting our spin on what they're saying. That's the same thing. So we got to be really patient with this process. The next quote is, the righteous battle is waged between the virtues of the soul's discriminative intelligence. So those are all those qualities of in our spine, right? And you'll learn many more as we dive in the next 6-week session. And here are some more words from Yogananda about the lower nature, ignoble. He uses the word ignoble, uncontrolled activities of the blind mind. So we add that to what I just read you, the wicked, impulsive, mental, and sense tendencies, and we realize that there is a strong lower nature, obviously, that we have that is keeping us way far away from our brilliance and our beauty and our true nature and our wisdom and our understanding, way far away. It's the buddhi, is that pure discriminative mind, the buddhi mind, that is always encouraging us to follow the way of wisdom, the way that would take us back to soul consciousness. The manas mind is literally driving us away from any possibility of happiness, because the changing world cannot possibly give us happiness, because it's changing. It's like I said earlier, you're happy for a while, but you know, wow, this is going to change. Or a loved one gets sick. The variables, the uncertainties are so innumerable that unless we discover soul happiness, there's no chance for happiness on this plane of existence. Because you get a phone call and that shifts your whole life, right? You stub your toe and then it gets infected and then something else goes wrong. Little things can pop out of nowhere to completely change the direction that you work so hard and struggle so hard in control of your life to go. It'll never work for you. Never, ever. Until now. This is a game of complete surrender, you know, into the soul, where you let go, as we talked about last week, let go of the controls completely. and trust in love. Trust in love, trust in peace, trust in the things that you really, 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 really want. So this session is really about looking at how you and I, once we've looked at and analyzed and done our introspection and go, whoa, you know, boy, I need some more energy here on the virtuous side, the soul qualities. I really do. So then you get a little more busy or a lot more busy. Surrounding yourself with a strategy or a game plan where you're doing those things that support the soul, and one by one, maybe reducing your attention on the others. This is always inspiring what I'm going to read you now. You may have saw it, but you probably didn't want to really read each quality, ignoble quality. This was at the end of your introduction, and it's Yogananda just talks about just some of the 100 sense inclinations that we can have when we're guided by the blind mind, you know. So there's two forces that can drive your car. You're either soul-driven or buddhi, wisdom-driven, or you're ego-driven and the manas, sense-mind-driven. And we made that analogy that if it was a chariot and there were horses, that the intelligence of the blind mind isn't even driving because it's blind. And it's letting the five senses be very unruly and dictate to the mind how to live life. Your senses. Uncontrolled, ignoble, wicked tendencies that take you away from your soul every time. But the wisdom mind is saying, whoa, I'm trying to get control of some of these outgoing energies that I've got, and I know I have a direction. That is, I'm a divine being. I'm much more than the five senses, right? So you start to hold on to the reins of your senses with that buddhi intelligence versus that blind mind who says, I don't care. Whatever's happening, I'm in. I'm not even going to analyze it, because it's a lot easier, it seems, for a lot of people not to have to think about this stuff. Because remember, you say, I'm going to meditate, now you're going to start focusing on it. You go, whoa, that's scary initially. And that initially maybe 10, 20 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 2 years. It all depends, you know, where you're at. So that's why a lot of people won't come close to what you and I are coming close to right now. So here it is, the negative.